we do have our first caller if you're ready. I'm a little confused as to what they're wanting to talk about, but maybe Wade can let us know what he wants to talk about. Hey there, Wade. How you doing?
Hey, yeah, this is Wade. I was just answering the question in the headline, can a theist prove theism, I guess, if you will? No, I don't believe they can.
Elaborate on that a little bit.
And I'm a theist.
Yeah, let's elaborate on that a little bit. So what exactly are you wanting to discuss? Because it seems like you want to discuss, the call screen that we have is a little bit different. It says that you want to discuss how theism can never prove evolution in particular wrong, which I tend to agree. But then what you've said here to us just now seems to be a little bit more in the vein of like theism can never prove atheism wrong? What do you want to talk about?
No, I said no. In terms of the question on the headline, my understanding, it basically was like, hey, can a creationist, prove creationism? No, they can't. I don't think they can. That's kind of like my point. And I'm a creationist, if you will.
Okay, so you are a creationist. Why are
Correct.
you convinced of creationism then?
Well, that's where the faith. It's all faith. The Bible says that only just live by faith.
I got to interrupt real quick.
That's how it goes down. Sure.
No, but I got to interrupt here because it's not faith. like creationism, as far as like how we know this world came into existence, like how it developed over time, how we know that evolution is a real thing that happens, and how it's the best explanation for the diversity of life. These are not faith-based things. Like you don't have to have faith about those things. There's
that's not faith at all.
Things.
No, you're 100%. That's not faith at all. The faith that I'm talking about is, obviously as a Christian, Jesus Christ, and that's, to just live by faith. But in terms of your creationist, and, there's a lot of deception in Christianity and religion, and there's a lot of religions. My whole thing is this, that I don't believe true Christianity is a religion. I believe it's a reality. And this is just my own faith. But I will say this, for instance, with the whole Trump thing and the derangement thereof in the majority of the Christian, they're so deceived, they're wrapped up in the religion that they're all in the religion. And it's religion. My whole thing is faith. Okay. It's a personal thing. And, it's a tough deal because at the end of the day, we're in a big trouble with this Trump thing, and people can't seem to figure out the riddle, if you will.
So I think we're, I will put myself out there and say we're probably on the same page with the Trump thing, but I'm more sort of interested in this idea of like creationism is about having faith. It's sort of like, despite all of what we see in science, which is a wonderful tool that was developed, at least in the West, primarily by Christians, to investigate God's creation. And the way that they sort of argued this is they were like, we should, if God made everything, we should find and be able to investigate God through the creation. And their argument was basically like creation thus should not be deceptive. So what John and I were talking about earlier was this sort of where we sort of go hands off, or I was always talking about where I go hands off in the conversation with folks who are religious, is like, if we can agree on all of the science, but then, they believe that there's a God behind it, we can have a philosophical conversation about that, but it's not going to be a scientific one. Creationism, on the other hand, is inherently a scientific conversation. And it's one that I think you can't make the argument for. And I think it's one that you can't make the argument for from science or even from Scripture.
In terms of what you're saying, in my interpretation, I believe this earth is millions and millions of years old, and I think science and historical archaeology proves that fact. But it's unfortunate that the religious community, in terms of the Christian community, like the Trump derangement that they're under, they can't seem to get that riddle. And it's unfortunate, but this is how I see things. And, I think that when I interpret the Bible, when I read it, I think it confirms the fact that it's millions of years old, and obviously science does also.
So I think that's
Okay.
awesome. I'm glad we're on the same page with that. How do you feel then about evolutionary theory? Since we're going down the creationism sort of discussion here, what are your thoughts about evolution?
Well, I mean, evolution hasn't been proven, just like, if
It
you will,
has.
the Bible hasn't been exactly proven. Because if you think about what is proof and what is proof, I think everybody can agree on proof.
Well,
So
wait,
And
what's
if you
what's
look at if you look at it, and this
hold on,
is
wait,
hypothetical, and I'll be quick. Say, how many
wait.
seconds do I get? 2 seconds, 3 seconds to finish, or no?
Well, I mean, you've already said. Well, hold on. So this is turning into a gish gallop. I don't want it to be a gish gallop. I want to handle like particular like statements. So first, you said evolution's not proven, and evolution has been proved as well as any scientific theory can be proved. So like it's well supported by
Well, okay,
evidence.
that's fair.
Which
Okay, so let me interpret what I'm saying. It hasn't been proven in so much that everybody's on board.
does an
That's the
ad
point that I was
populum
making. Not that
argument?
it's been proven or this. I'm talking about on board. In other words, when something is proven, everybody's on board that it is a proven fact, and we can deal with facts. Facts are facts, and we got to stick with the facts. That's it. And if we get off the fact of the matter, we're going to be in a little bit of trouble. And we're in a
so
position right now
Wade,
politically, and I'm not there.
under
Continue on.
that
I'm sorry.
definition though, no, it's okay. I wanted to add something to that though, because I want to make sure that you feel like you're being heard, that we can have sort of a chat back and forth. But I do take issue with one thing that you said, which is like this idea that if everybody agrees on it, it's a fact. We have no facts then, right? Because there are people out there who believe that the Earth is flat right
100%.
now.
That's why you
So
can't
it's
prove
like,
it. That's why you can't
sure.
prove it.
So then we can't prove
You're
anything.
without
That's
all the
fine.
facts, and so therefore you're never going to prove it unless you had all of them, and you're never going to get them all. It's like me being a gold digger. My
Hold
goal
on.
is
What's a
to
fact
find
to
all
you?
the gold in the world. That's all I'm going
No,
to know is about digging for
If
gold.
wait, hold on, Wade. What is a fact to you? Like maybe we need to go back to like, basics
Oh
here.
my
Like, could you
God.
define what a fact is for us? Because I feel like we're talking about two different fucking things.
Okay. Well, a fact to me is if I went digging for gold and I found a big old fat gold nugget, and there's a rumor going around, most people don't believe it. I believe it because I found it and I know it's true. And then the people that witness it knows it's true. And so that's a fact to me.
I
But,
feel like that's
seeing
not.
is believing. Seeing is
I feel like
believing.
that's not
My whole
even
thing is this.
consistent, right?
No, like I don't even know how that. I don't know. I don't know how that
I'm sorry,
resolves
come
like
again.
as a fact. No, that how
What
is
did
that
she
a
say?
fact? Like that doesn't even. She's saying that
Basically,
what you're saying
that was
doesn't
an
make sense as far
analogy.
as
I
a
was trying to
fact.
do an analogy. Look, it ain't a fact because it's not true. I was trying to do an analogy. And maybe that was a terrible, and I apologize if it is. I'm just trying to
Okay.
acknowledge, like, look, you search, you find, and then that individual that searches and finds whatever truth that they find, that's their truth. And it's
I
like
think
if
that's
you
very
search for truth or
postmodernist of
history
you.
or this or that, you got to search for it. It's like digging for gold.
So it's
That's
very
kind of the
postmodernist
point
of
or
you,
the
Wade.
analogy that I'm trying to say.
But the
And
problem
so
with that
can you
is that you
prove
can
that a
apply.
fact that I found the biggest nugget in the town? No, you're never going to prove it. How are you
So
going
I
to prove
think,
it?
Wade, you can apply that to a lot of
If you tried
stuff,
to
right? You
prove
can
that
apply
one,
that to
you might be in big
Jesus
trouble.
philosophy.
Christ! But I'm muting you, Wade. I'm sorry. You don't know how to listen when somebody is talking. Okay, you're muted right now. Go ahead, Erika.
Hey, sorry, Wade. I just, I feel like we have to have a nice back and forth here, and I feel like it's fair to interrupt someone when you feel like they're sort of mischaracterizing something or something isn't clear, which is why I'm interrupting you. But I feel like your definition of a fact here could be applied to an opinion, meaning that I think what your definition of a fact is that it's an opinion, right? It's very postmodernist. You're like, well, everybody can have their truth, and there is no objective reality. But that's just not how our world operates. We all operate as humans as if there is a shared objective reality. We do it when we get on planes. We do it when we get in cars. We do it when we eat our food. We do it when we, look at the weather. there are things that we can all agree on. And generally speaking, those things that we agree on are rooted in science, because what science is it's a way of knowing, it's a way about, understanding the natural world around us and sort of using that to improve our lives. So in that case, I would say that your definition of a fact is not something that matches reality, right? It's just not something that works. Now we can have a conversation about like whether or not what you're saying sort of reflects a lot of people's perspective of a fact. But what I don't think we can do is move forward with that as an operative, agreed upon definition of a fact. John, are you on the same page with me on that?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
that's
I
totally
am.
fair.
Okay,
Absolutely,
so
that's totally fair. And if you the guys let me respond, and it won't take long. I would respond in this way: that I guess what I would say is, I really don't have the answers, and in terms of the science and all that kind of stuff. And you're right, but at the same time, I'll say this: people pick sides. The yellow team, the blue team, the red team, whatever team. And to try to get everybody to jump on the science side, and I get it, because the science in terms of what you guys are saying is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, in terms of the sentiment that you just gave me. It just kind of is like, wow, science. I guess I get eyed out. We live forever, take the chip, whatever it takes, and we live forever. And that's what the science says.
I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about right now. I'm lost. I feel like you're just on a stream of consciousness
I was being
now.
facetious. My bad. I was being facetious. I didn't mean
I just
to be
don't know
rude.
where you were going with that. Like you started talking about taking some kind of chip or something, and then therefore you're going to live forever. Like I'm sorry, dude. I just don't know.
I apologize. I digress from that. I'm sorry, man. I didn't look. I don't know how to. I don't. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I feel like you're sort of painting John and I like we like worship science or something, and that it's, this is like the only way to know anything about the world. I can't speak for John, but I don't feel that way, right? Like things like philosophy, even though they're way over my head, or like talking about, having these conversations about religion, right? Like these are important conversations to have. They're just not within the purview of science. And I would argue that science is our greatest tool when it comes to improving the lives of people on this planet. And many people who are on the side of not science, as you sort of alluded, that there's being on the side of science and not being on the side of science, they don't actually live their lives like that, right? They live their lives in the comfort of a home heated by science, driving a car that was created by science, enjoying immunity from diseases that they got because of science. And it's like, then they choose arbitrarily to pick parts that they don't like and say, actually, like, I don't really like this idea of, not, being another type of animal on the planet. And so I'm going to reject that. That's sort of what I mean when I'm talking about science and consensus and how it applies to the lives that we lead here on the planet, right? It's like, it's not a religion, it's not a worldview, it's just a tool. And insofar as it is a tool, it's very, very difficult to whole cloth reject big chunks of it while using the rest of it to improve your life. So I reject the concept that someone can have their truth, and that truth is relative when you're including things like science. And I'm sort of assuming that no one here is a solipsist when I say that, but
That's fair. That's fair. No, that's totally fair. I totally get it. It's not. Look, man, I'm not a very smart guy, and I kind of have probably a lower IQ, and but my whole thing is this: it's like, there's those that are going to live by faith, and there's going to be those that have that blind faith, and there's those people that are going to be, if you will, kind of been dumbed down, and
I guess what falls flat for me there, Wade.
I think that's where the balance lies. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that's where it kind of falls flat for me. I don't understand blind faith in things. I mean, I guess for in very small instances, I guess blind faith, but like as far as the context in which we're speaking in, I don't really understand blind faith. Like, why would you want to have blind faith when you could have actual evidential support for your position instead of just blindly believing whatever some kind of old book is going to tell you? And I mean, I don't understand why you think the Bible says that the earth is quote millions of years old or billions of years old. I don't see where you're getting that from. I also don't know how like God factors into your worldview as far as like the world being created and how God factors into evolution and all that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like there's a lot we could iron out in your theology there, because I don't know. I'm thoroughly confused where you're sitting at, because it just kind of seems like you're using faith, blind faith, as sort of like a filler for the gaps in your knowledge. And I guess I don't understand the appeal for doing that, other than instead of saying I don't know, you can now say, well, God. I mean, do you think that just saying, oh, well,
Well,
God did it, is a
it's a
sufficient answer?
situational. Well, if I could respond just momentarily, it would be a situation to where it's my experience in my little short term life, because time goes fast and all that. But in my experience, and in terms of the life lessons that I've lived, I've realized some things, and it's one of those deals, you know. And
What
it's
things have you
something
realized?
that, well, I grew up in a way that is much different than the ordinary. And, suppose, you grow up in a way that, you were born in a situation to where you're not going to be successful, and you're not going to be able to, if you will, survive in terms of knowledge. You were dumbed down, and, you made it through to where you could see some things that perhaps most people can't see. So, you get
Uh,
kept out of a certain matrix, if you must. And,
made Wait,
you come one
like
with
the
nature.
Matrix?
Well, one with nature, in so
What?
much that if you look at nature, and I'll try to do it like this: you look at nature, you're with nature, you see nature's in harmony. It has a cycle. Well, humankind, they're kind of like not fitting in the picture, in terms of, you
How
look at the
not?
earth, you look at the world, you look at the animals, you look at the harmony thereof, and then you look at mankind is the only species that I could see. I don't know if you could see it. I could see it. That humankind has a problem. I mean, and the problem is amongst each other. So think about it.
Wait. So wait, do you think other animals don't have problems like inside their own species? I mean,
You don't
I'm
know what I
sure
mean by
Erica can tell you
harmony?
loads.
You don't know what I mean by harmony?
I don't.
They do the
I have
same
no
thing
idea
year after year,
what you mean.
decade after decade. Humankind, they have ups and downs, don't they?
Ups and downs. I'm not sure what you're talking about
Wait,
here.
if I may, this is kind of a heady conversation. I think we're sort of wanting to ground it in stuff that's rather concrete, and I feel like you've kind of got this perspective that, and I'll speak for myself, at least to me, is like it's much more philosophical, and you're kind of pulling in all of these, observations that may or may not hold depending on what you're talking about. Like, are humans doing something that's fundamentally different than all other animals on the planet today? I would argue that we're doing something of a very extremely, that's different in degree, but not in kind, not categorically different. Have other animals, doomed themselves through time? Yes, we've seen this a lot of times. Throughout history, just not in the same way that we see humans doing it. And we can have that kind of conversation, but I feel like what you're really getting at here is that it's like you're sort of alluding to this idea that humans are broken, humans are wrong, we're doing something odd, that the only explanation for is something with a supernatural element. And you said a couple of times that, like, oh, you're not very educated, or whatever, you think you're dumb. I don't think you're dumb, and I think that if you want to be educated on these kinds of topics, like whatever the age of the earth, or evolution, or human behavior, human and other animal behavior, you've got internet access, you've got all of that at your fingertips, and I bet you could dig really deep into it if you really want to. You're the only one holding yourself back in that respect. But I feel like you're wanting to have this conversation that's kind of heady, that's kind of philosophical, and you're kind of pulling in these other elements that I don't know if you really want to dig into. Does that make sense? Because it only
Oh,
kind of did to me.
absolutely. My main reason I called is I was just trying to answer you guys' headline. I love you guys' show. I've been here watching you guys for approximately 6 months. And, I just want to answer the headline. I don't believe a theist can prove you guys wrong. I don't think they could do it. I don't think there's enough proof to be able to get you guys to prove you wrong. I don't think it. I think if it, it would already happen in my lifetime.
Okay.
I feel like it would already improve.
Well,
you know.
Well, we appreciate your call there, Wade. We do have a couple of other people to get to tonight, so I think we're going to go ahead and switch on over to them. Yep, no problem. Call in again in the future.
Thanks for watching the show and for calling in as well.
No, I'll continue, guys. Watch you guys are great. Love you guys. You guys got a mind that is open. And it's refreshing because, it's unfortunate, especially in the Christian community or the religious community or whatever you want to call it. Man, it's really closed-minded. And you're open-minded is definitely refreshing. And I really appreciate you guys for that.
I thank you for calling in, Wade. I that's what we want, right? Is we want people, whether they agree with us or disagree with us, if you want to have this kind of conversation, like call in. That's the whole point of the show. So thank you so much for the kind words and for calling in. And hopefully you'll still continue to enjoy what we have to say, even if you disagree with us. So thank you, Wade.
See you, Wade.
Bye-bye.
Hey, come on, man. We gotta promote that clip we all just watched.
Well, I'd rather not shill.
Okay, well, Daddy has a $2,000 a month red oak habit, and I am your production god, and you will shill when I tell you to shill. Dance for me, baby.
Go, God damn it. Why did my life come to this? Go to patreon.com/call-the-line and donate. God damn it.
This is what happens when we let live chatters write our scripts.